Hey, it's Brian.
Nate.
Hey, it's Barry.
And welcome to the Collecti-Bros podcast. On this episode, we will be discussing console launch libraries. What do we look for in a console launch library? What are some good ones? What are some bad ones? We're talking about it all. Speaking of talking, do me a favor and follow us on social media. We are at Collecti-Bros Pod on all major platforms. Also, check us out on Discord. Every single episode's show notes, every single one for all time ever, is where that link is.
What?
I don't know.
Appreciate the energy.
Yeah. But yeah, in the show notes, invite links in there. Check it out, y'all. It's where we are the most active. Well, before we get started, every time we talk about what we're playing and what we picked up. Who wants to go first, kids?
Timon and you and me had the least to talk about.
I picked up a ton of shit.
All right, rock, paper, scissors.
All right.
Real time
1, 2, 3, shoot.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right.
Wait, do I go first then?
The pick, you go.
Rules weren't
okay.
determined.
It's true. Winner picks rules.
Plays and pickups. All right, well, mine's really short because I haven't
Short
been
but
playing.
sweet.
I haven't been playing nothing. I feel like I was playing something. Okay, I'll just do pickups real quick. Pickups. Brian was at a convention recently, and he picked me up as Divine Dios, which is one of the limited run games. Thank you for that. He also picked me up a game that I already had because I told him to, so it's not your fault.
To be fair, there was a lot there. It was just condition was not very standard. Or my standard, quite frankly.
I got my limited run order from a year ago of Justice Chronicles and Witchwood for PS5.
Nice. I've heard good things about Witchwood.
Knights of the Azure, or Azure, however you want to say it, for PS4. I've got the second game and I've been looking out for the first one. And we all had a conversation recently in the Discord about Xbox 360 is starting to jump up crazy in price and like what maybe we should be going for next. And I think we all universally agreed that like PS4 is kind of the one to start snagging now before it gets crazy. And so Knights of Azure is kind of already going up. It's like 40 or so. So I was able to get it. I think I was able to get it for 30. I had a discount on it. So I was able to snatch that. And then they had a big import selection there, and I ended up getting East of Eden 0 and Legend of Heroes 2 Dragon Slayer, both for the Super Famicom. And both of those are exclusive. They're not released in the West of any form. So I usually try to only get Super Famicom games if they never came over here or ported anyway. So they've been on my wish list.
Nice.
So as far as playing, I've been busy with school. I had my final today. I'm free now.
Freedom.
Free to go play Fortnite forever, I guess. So I've been playing Stardew Valley because it was on sale, and I've been playing it on my Steam Deck, so I can just kind of like pause it and then just turn it off and come back to it later. I'd never played Stardew Valley, and I didn't want to start because I knew I was just gonna like sink in it forever. And I'm realizing how many games cloned Stardew Valley.
Oh yeah.
Which is crazy. There's some things about it I don't like and a lot of things I do like, but as far as like the pinnacle of farming sim, other than Harvest Moon, like Stardew Valley is it. So if you don't like pixel games, like maybe you won't like this one, but I think the pixel art on it is amazing. The lighting is crazy.
It looks awesome.
I was showing Nate some of it. Like the lighting and the color are incredible. The people, they're okay, I guess. I made my guy look like an old man, so it's just, he's like an old man farmer. But I am very impressed by the pixel graphics in this game. I never actually realized how good they were until I started playing it. And it doesn't look nice on that OLED screen, so...
Nice.
I've got some things that I want to play going forward, so I'll probably start grinding those out pretty aggressively. But I think that's really it.
Can I ask you a question about Stardew Valley really quick?
Yeah.
I've seen like media outlets like re-reviewing it for like fairly recently.
They had a big update recently.
Yeah.
I don't know what was in the update, but I knew he had a big update after like not having one for years or something
That's what
like
I was
that.
going to ask. I was like, why is everyone talking about this game?
Yeah,
That's like playing it,
motorcycles and zombies.
something big. I don't know. Is that? Oh, okay. I was like, is that what's in it? I don't know. That'd be wild.
I don't remember what it is, but yeah, it's a big deal, I guess. I mean, it's a one-man dev.
I think they added. I think he added some more NPCs or like new people you could marry, or I don't know. Not super sure, but I know there was a big update.
Yeah.
So that's all. What do you got, Brian?
All good. I had a lot of pickups. I've been fucking scoring recently, man. I picked up a copy of Digimon Survive. It was new for $10.
We're just living vicariously through Brian.
Yeah,
now.
I've been killing it recently. I picked up another banger too, which is even more awesome. But I got one of the Yakuza Like a Dragon steelbooks I didn't have. The Best Buy exclusive one that's red with like the whole cast in the front. Just a steelbook, but I don't need another copy of the game, so it's fine. I was going to go ahead and buy Rise of the Ronin at Walmart. I stumbled across it used for like $45, so I said, yup. Been playing that a little bit. I have not played it as much as I want to, but starting it, like the combats, I can tell I'm going to enjoy it. The combat's really like frantic, and there's a lot of strategy to it depending on what weapon you have. It's going to be a good one. It's just I've been sinking my time into something else, unfortunately. We'll get there, and I'll explain my actions. I picked up a Japanese copy of Crash Bandicoot on PlayStation. It was cheap. It was like literally single digit, and it's just different cover art. It was kind of cool. Spur of the moment pictures. Coolest thing I got was a jewel case copy of Doom for the PlayStation. And if y'all don't know, these are pretty uncommon. It was one of the original long box releases. So to find this thing in a jewel case that's not greatest hits, it's pretty rare. It's like $20. It's my app says like 200.
Were the black labels just like low print?
Yeah, extremely in the jewel case because it's supposed to be in like the long box.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just like the first run of like jewel case PlayStation games. So a little interesting history behind it. I love Doom. Plus the actual disc art, it's got like a printed image of the cover on the disc. It's really cool instead of just having that black etching like the greatest hit version does. But PlayStation port for Doom's great as it is. It stands out. So this is a really cool thing to add to my collection.
PC, it's the best way to play it, honestly.
Yeah, it's a fun port. Like I'm super happy to grab that. Never thought I'd own one, especially for I wasn't going to pay that much for. I already have the greatest hits version.
What? Not playing it on the potato is the best way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So at the convention, I picked up a couple things. I picked up Need for Speed Most Wanted. That game's slowly going up to $100 on 360. Phew. So I grabbed it now before the boom happens.
I'm sorry, how much?
Closing in on 100.
For
it was
Most
a launch,
Wanted?
It was a launch 360 game, so the 360 version's expensive, but
I mean,
because there wasn't a PS3.
Even the disc, it's going for like $70.
Yeah,
just the disc by itself, like $70.
Is there like
360's getting wild, bro? I'm over here losing hair, chewing fingernails. Like,
all right,
it sucks.
Damn, I know like a lot of the launch 360 games are going up.
No, dude.
I know like American Wasteland's like not cheap anymore.
No, it's stupid. A lot of the low print games, like Infernal, I picked my copy up for like $2.99 years ago. It's $100 game now. And the game's horrible. We can spend so much time talking about the 360.
Let me just sort my thing here real quick and be like, what is happening?
For real, y'all, like get on it because the YouTubers are talking about it now, and now it's over.
Excuse me?
He who should not be named just made a new video about it, so we should be getting the ridiculous levels here any minute.
Y'all want to watch it after this episode?
I watched it and was like, I was eating my hamburger last night, so this was bullshit talking to Sherry. It was great. Dragon Ball Z Connect, it's one I've been looking for because it's a DBZ exclusive game for the Connect. I think it's got some wiggle room on it too. It was cheap. The game's impossible though if you've never played it. Like Nate and I game flight it like when it was new, and we just looked at each other, nah, fuck this, and sent it back. Like, we were not getting a single achievement in this game.
Funny.
With that, I picked up Dragon Ball Evolution for PSP because, you know, it's great. Sealed copy, and it was like literally $6. So it's hilarious. I hope it's as bad as the movies. What I told the guy, and he was like, it is. So we'll see. Biggest reason I went to this convention, though, they had a bunch of voice actors from video games there. The GTA 5 cast was there. They were all great. They got in like a bidding war of like signing everything on my game, like not just the cover. They signed the disc. The voice actor for Franklin literally wrote on the back of the, like, well, the white part of the back of the art or whatever. He's like, I pissed you, ain't that a bitch? Like, pretty funny, like, pretty great. The guy that plays John from Red Dead Redemption, like, signed my case, John Marston with his name. I've met him before. He's from the same area. He's a really nice guy. Red Dead 2, the guy that plays Arthur, he was awesome. Like, just chatted me up for like 20 minutes about his upcoming game. It's a PlayStation exclusive. Like, really cool guy. He's not doing a voice at all. It's exactly what he sounds like. It was great. Everybody else is doing a voice. It's just how the dude talks. Either that or he's stating character the whole time, which either way is an A+. But just all these people were super friendly, super approachable. You could tell they really just liked being with the fans. And then lastly, David Hayter got my copy of Metal Gear signed, and he signed it in red, and it's beautiful. I put it in Discord. I'm not trying to show off or whatever, but it's pretty sick. Like I'm pretty proud of that. I'm going to display all these just because they're awesome. Put them next to my autographed copy of Mass Effect 3. Couple other pickups I got. Sherry wanted to get some books, so I just naturally went to the video game section. Picked up Evolve Ultimate.
As do we all.
Yeah. She was like, I want my fantasy romance books, and I was like, I'll be back. Picked up Evolve Ultimate Edition. It was like single digits. Price is normal version. This thing actually goes for like $25 or $30, surprisingly. I'm not really sure why, because I think it has the DLC on the disc.
Got the listed, yeah.
Yeah. FIFA 22, I needed a copy on Xbox One because the servers are going down. No Man's Sky on Xbox. I already have it on PlayStation, but obviously I want to play it for achievements. And then Gotham Knights. I got all of these for like the price of No Man's Sky alone. So, okay, whatever. I'm glad you enjoyed your books, dear. I got some games. Limited Run Games sent me my Castlevania Advanced Collection. I got like the premium edition with the box that lights up and sings. Love it. It's beautiful. Also got Quake 2 on Xbox. I haven't opened it up yet. I don't remember what's in it, truth be told. But huge fan of Quake 2. Big part of my childhood. And then
he's going.
I know. I've been scoring, bro. I'm trying to go fast. And then lastly, yesterday I got Grim Fandango remastered on Xbox.
Okay.
So yeah, Limited Run Game shipment. As far as playing, nothing but I've been trying to play Rise of the Ronin, but literally Fallout 76 is like taking my life, which is crazy because I played it for about 10 hours at launch and was just like, this ain't for me. This isn't what I want in a Fallout game. It's come a long way. I'm happy to report it's got issues and stuff still. It's not a perfect game. If you have friends and you do the excavations and the events and stuff, it's really fun. I've had a lot of fun just like hunting the cryptids. Like they're a big part of the story. The boss battles are really engaging. They're really fun with the group where it's like, this thing's level 100. Like, how are we going to take it down? And there's like 12 people with power armor with miniguns just mowing this Mothman down. The story is not great. It's a lot of concerns for the lore of Fallout, quite frankly, but playing the show, watching the show with Sherry, I was like, I kind of want to play 76. It's the one I haven't gone through. I've literally dumped about 75 hours in the past 3 weeks in this game, like many sleepless nights, including last night. It's probably why I'm jabbering and yabbering, but it's all right. I've had a lot of fun with it, honestly. It's turned around quite a bit since launch, and it's cheap. I mean, it's on Game Pass. You can play it. Sucks there's no crossplay. Like I said, it's got issues, but I do think it's worth your time if you're a Fallout fan. The main story is man, but some of the expansions are pretty great. Like I'm playing the Brotherhood of Steel one now. It's a lot of fun. Like one quest is like 10 hours. So interesting stuff. I am going to play Rise of the Ronin more. I really want to spend some time with that. It seems like it's going to be a blast. What have you been up to, Nate?
I was playing a game for, I think it's the next episode. That's what I've primarily been playing. I built a little bit of the show in between. It's not as grindy this year, so I hope I get to play more than just a show.
I feel like I remember you telling me you didn't like it at first, and it's growing you now.
Definitely how I feel. So in the past, to keep it short because it's sports and no one cares but me, they would just
tell us about your sports, buddy.
Throw content at you. And if you felt like you had to sit there and play the game every day to progress, this year it doesn't really feel that way. They're not really forcing it down your throat. Like I check in a couple times a week, play a couple games, get my stuff done, and I can kind of, if I want to keep playing, I can, but I don't feel like
you have to keep up.
Very quickly, 3 weeks, 4 weeks into the game, you feel like I can't keep up unless this is the only game I play for the whole year. I've never felt rushed once this whole season. So I'll go 2 or 3 days without touching it, which is like, that's big for me if you guys have listened to the podcast.
A lot of people are complaining that they haven't put as much effort into this game for content.
I feel like it's because there's more stuff that you can only buy. Does it make you buy it to like keep up? But there's certain cards in the past they would have just made an event you can unlock stuff that are hidden in like limited. You can only buy it for a week in a pack of cards. Which
so are they encouraging more microtransactions?
It feels like it, but you can earn.
You can't get those in an event.
Earn so much in-game currency. It's not really a problem if you don't want it to be, but it definitely feels like there's more of a push to buy stuff in the store than unlock it through natural progression.
So is everything in the store the same currency, or is there currency that you can get by playing the game and then premium currency?
No, it's the same currency.
Okay.
So you buy
I was really curious.
That's the thing. It's like, it's the least predatory. They're still got argument for being predatory, but as far as sports games, it's the least predatory one by far. You can manipulate the market fairly easy if you're into that. That's not really my style, but
I mean, hopefully they won't start coming out with, hey, you can only get this card and this style pack for this limited amount of time, and you can't use you in-game money for it. It's premium currency only.
But I think there's concerns because it's definitely a different approach than in the past with them. In the past, they're like, we don't care. It seems like it, but I think going on every console has kind of made them go,
I wonder if they're testing it this year to see what pushback they
That's
get.
what it feels like.
Yeah.
It feels like it's dipping your toes in the water, and it's like, boy, don't
Remember when
you.
2K did that? How'd that work out?
Yeah, it's not, you know how it
It
worked
made
out?
them tons of money.
As I say, you know how it worked out? They had literally the highest grossing 2K of all
Mm-hmm.
time this year, and I haven't touched 2K in months, which, if you all know, that's a big deal for me. I don't even play that mode. That's what's hilarious about 2K. It just feels gross. That's all I've really been playing. I haven't played a whole... It's the podcast game, I had to kind of crunch it. We moved around some stuff on our schedule.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I did it last year, I think, for something.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Can't remember.
The dog was getting surgery and all sorts of other shit
I think
going
that's what
on.
it was.
Yeah, so life happens. I wasn't pointing a finger. I'm just saying it shifted my priorities around a little bit. But as far as pickups, I'm working on a trade with Barry right now for some stuff.
Yeah.
I've never actually played any
He's
Harvest.
going to be getting a big boy here.
Yeah.
We both getting, well, you're getting a bigger one,
Yeah, I've never played Harvest Moon. I have like a lot of them. I know Barry's really into the franchise, so we're kind of working on a trade for some stuff.
but, well, I mean, we already made that trade, so it's yours. You're leaving this house with it.
Barry is getting a copy of Harvest Moon 64 and some compensation to be named later, and I'm getting a copy of Blood Will Tell on PS2. So
It's one I've always considered doing this for this podcast.
I've actually
It's a lot of money.
I want
Now
to
it
play
gives Nate a
it.
chance not to do a fucking 64 game, so I'm all for this trade.
I took one 64 game, and then it's going to be me doing it
it's
later.
all right.
No, I like when you can like work out a trade with a friend. We both feel like we're getting a deal, and it's weirdly Barry has like helped supply my PS2 collection quite a bit, so it's kind of funny. And
Is your only 64 game, Barry?
she's got Ogre Battle.
No, I've got two.
Oh.
I've got Ogre Battle and now Xena.
yeah,
That's
Xena.
right.
Thanks
Yeah,
to
I
Nate.
forgot Xena,
So excited for that one. It's a big one. So like, yeah, it's only one pickup, but it's a pretty monumental one. So
It's a big game. It's worth
We've all
a
been
lot
getting
of
some
money.
bangers recently, man. Ooh.
so that's it.
I will say I was playing a game. It was Dragon's Dogma.
Oh yeah.
I finished
You
Dragon's
finished it,
Dogma
right?
2.
Yeah.
Yep.
Were you affected by the update where they kind of changed the sickness? Because I know that was like a big.
I didn't get Dragon's Plague once in that
Wow.
whole game.
Holy
Okay.
shit, you might be the only person on Earth. That's crazy.
No, because I would throw my pawn in the water and then respawn him. It's easy.
So there's a workaround.
So
What are people
basically,
complaining about then?
because they want to fucking bitch and moan about everything. Good lord.
You ain't wrong.
So Dragon's Plague in the game, how this works, if you're not familiar with Dragon's Dogma, you have a pawn. It's basically like you get to create a little NPC side guy sidekick that runs around with you. And you can change the best part about this game is the vocations. You can change at any point in time. So if you're tired of being a fighter, you can switch to somebody else and play that one and level it up and then see what you like playing the most without creating the other character over and over. You can do the same thing with your pawns. There's 4 classes that they can't use, like the special ones like Magic Archer and stuff. But the pawns go into this little realm somewhere. And it's their way of doing quote-unquote multiplayer where you can hire other people's pawns to join your party to make a full 4-man team. So you can hire 2 at a time. Dragon's Plague is this disease that you get from fighting dragons or drakes. So there's basically some drakes in the game that run around where you can fight them. They're difficult. Like they can TPK you for sure. I almost had one TPK me. Ugh. But the more you fight them, the more they can contract this disease. And then once they go back into the rift, is what it's called, they can spread it around. So if you hire someone's pawn who has Dragon's Plague, the only way to get rid of it is to pass it on to another pawn, so they can pass it on to your pawn and then go back and not have it anymore. Or your pawn has to be forfeit. And they don't tell you when your pawn has it. You have to basically pay attention to what they're saying. Their dialogue will change a little bit. Their demeanor will change. They'll stop listening to your commands. They'll get bratty with you. And then eventually
they get cooties and they get bratty. It's awesome.
yeah, they're just the pawns in the game, they have to follow your commands.
Right.
They're you're my everything, you're my master. And then at some point they'll stop listening to you. If you go tell them to do something, they'll be like, nah, I'm going to go do that. So you have to pay attention. And if you don't pay attention, all of a sudden you're going to wake up after sleeping in an inn and it's your pawn killed everybody.
Whoa.
So the whole town that wherever you're sleeping in, the pawn will just kill everybody.
Whoa.
And the only way that the NPCs will be dead. You can revive the NPCs, but you have to use wake stones. And they're not easy to get. So it can cost you a lot of money to what's the word? resurrect everybody in a town that your pawn basically killed.
That's crazy.
So that's why passing it on to another spawn or forfeiting your spawn are the only way to cleanse you of Dragon's Plague. So after some time, I just took my dude and chucked him in the water, killed him, and then just brought him back. That's it.
That basically cleans them, yeah.
Yep. I forfeited my pawn and then I respawned them. And it costs you nothing to respawn them. Anything if they have anything in their inventory when they die, it goes straight to your storage. So you don't lose items. All their equipment stays on there. It costs you nothing to respawn them. So I'm just like, I chuck everybody in the water.
Talking about this? That seems like such a...
I don't know. I don't know.
People love the bitch.
Literally just read the text. It says forfeit your pawn or pass it on to somebody else. So just give them a bath. Because like you can't swim. Going in the water will kill you. And it just... I felt really bad. I only did it maybe 3 times in my whole game.
You gotta get rid of cuties, bro.
Because there was one time where like I slept in an inn and it'll tell you like who your pawn has gone out with and like what items you've gotten back and like if they liked your pawn or whatever. And I slept in an inn and it popped up that he had gone out with like 7 different people. And I said, no. I said, we're going to go to the water. We're going to go out on the dock. I'm going to pick you up and I'm going to launch you off. And like my partner was sitting there when I did that and they were like, what are you doing? And I was like, don't look at the screen. And they're like, what are you doing to your little meow meow? Because he's he's one of the like that. He's like a lion. He looks like a lion. So I call him my little meow meow. So they're like, what are you doing to your little meow meow? And I'm like, I have to cleanse him. I have to. So I'm just like carrying him like fireman style. And he's like, what is this, Arisen? What is this? And I just straight up chuck him in the water. And before he hits the water, I spin the camera around so I don't have to watch him die. And they're like, what did you do? And I'm like, he might have had the plague. I had to cleanse him. Don't worry. I'll bring him back though. And they're like, you're a little meow meow. And I'm like, he's fine. So
just purging his soul.
That's fucking hilarious, dude.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
Anyways, I beat Dragon's Dogma. So
it's so funny. People are bitching about cuties where you can literally just give them a shower and you're fine.
Yeah,
like,
it costs you nothing to bring them back,
dude.
So when I decide I want to do it, I go ahead and send my pawns back to their owners. So if they have the Dragon's Plague, that's their owner's problem to deal with, not mine.
Right.
And then I go give my boy a bath, and then just rehire a bunch of people. It's not like you like immediately get it and it happens.
Right.
It takes time to develop.
Right.
So
They patch it to make it easier to notice and stuff. Like their eyes turn red and stuff now.
They did slightly at the beginning, but it was kind of hard to see.
Yeah.
They wanted you to pay attention to what was going on.
It's cool.
How it should be.
Yeah.
Don't make it easier.
People just cry because they want their hand held.
Jesus Lord.
And
Playing the wrong game for starters.
But
Right.
I had there's some things about the game I don't like, but that's something I can... If you're interested, get in the Discord.
Yeah. Are we talking about that? Yeah.
So it was a fine game. I had a great time. Worth it. Worth playing.
Nice.
Anyways, that was my game I forgot.
Speaking of playing, because we do that around here, when you buy a new console, you want to play games with it, right? For the most part, I would assume most of us, unless you just want to keep it in a box. Guilty. But no, we play our games around here. So let's get into this topic of launch games. What do you guys look for when you buy your brand new console?
Okay, I do want to ask the question, who here has bought a console launch day?
We have.
I think everybody, right?
I don't think I have.
You ever,
Yeah.
never?
No.
Well, yeah.
I know for a
I got my
fact.
PS5 like
They're
a
hard to get
week
now.
after.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah. I think this generation's been a little different. I had to scalp an Xbox because I've gotten every Xbox
Well,
on
you know
launch
what?
day.
Well, you know what? I'll consider, because there's no way a game came out within that week that was different. So that was probably a launch, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's launch time. Like, the thing is, launches are so fucking weird now. Like, they don't work like they used to.
Because I got,
true.
well, okay, so I got my PS5 a week after launch, just
Right.
because we couldn't find them.
Nothing came out in the 4 days.
Nothing came out.
Right.
I got my Switch in the first month.
I think I did too.
So
I found mine at
would
Walmart.
that be counted?
I would count it,
Okay.
especially at the modern stuff.
Launch
All
window.
right.
I think, yeah, it's not like it used to be.
They're
Like,
still like, holy crap, you gotta, you know what I'm saying?
It's not like I waited a couple months.
yeah,
Right.
to
a
get
lot's
it.
changed
Okay.
overall in general. I think that's a good point, Nate. Because I remember like PS2 launch was like 30 fucking games.
Yeah,
right
but
off the
everyone
bat.
got one that wanted one. It was
Yeah.
There wasn't a scarcity
And
to
that thing
it.
sold so many
because
copies.
they knew, for one.
But now shit gets scalped, and then you sit there and wait in a queue online. it is different. Just the whole, never mind getting the games for the goddamn thing, but just getting the console itself's hard now.
I will give this generation some slack because they tried to push this out during a chip shortage.
Sure.
So they weren't able to actually manufacture enough of them for the amount that the demand.
Yeah.
So
Now
they're
you see
everywhere.
'em. Yeah,
now
you
they're
see 'em.
everywhere.
You see both consoles, both versions of Xboxes, both PlayStations, everywhere. Walmart and Target both always have them in stock. Like, there's not really an excuse not to get
Do
one.
you guys remember this being the same problem with the last gen with Xbox One and PS4?
I got one day one.
No.
You just walked- okay.
We
Literally,
got
I
it from
pre-ordered.
GameStop,
They announced it like 6 to 8 months before they came out. I walked into GameStop. I called GameStop, said, "Hey, slot me because they were like limited for pre-orders," but got them both day one. So I remember, I think the PS4 came out a week before the Xbox One did.
Yep.
It was real close.
It was a week
Week or
before
two.
because I remember we were working tons of overtime. We ended up getting the PS4, the Xbox, and a TV all in the same check. So much overtime I worked.
So I will push this current gen off to the side as an
Yeah.
anomaly, and I'm
Yeah,
curious to
I
see
think
what
it's a
happens
si-
to the next
I think
one.
it's a sign of things that come, though. We'll see what that's a Switch 2.0.
Well, because even the first Switch, I remember it was hard to get, but I think it was more of a demand thing. It was much like the Wii when it came out. Like, you couldn't find a Wii on the shelf.
We'll get into why I think the Switch was in high demand
I think just
comparatively to
Nintendo's a general audience is my 2 cents, but
Well, there was the game that launched with it too.
that's
Yep.
true also. Which that's another thing. Like, leading into this topic, games can drive and sell a console at launch.
Mhm.
So that's why I think it's one of the things I look for is like you need a system seller, right? I think a really good example of that is the original Xbox with Halo. That's the number. I mean, I'm biased. I love Xbox,
Well,
but for me, it was like the first time you had a shooter that was like, console worthy, and it was like it literally was a great game. It had the online aspect that wasn't at launch, but
I would agree, except for the fact that we didn't know what Halo was all about until it came out.
It had a lot of hype around it, but
It had a lot of hype, but like
Right.
nobody had it in their hands.
it wasn't
yet,
like what you were alluding to with Zelda, where it's everyone knows Zelda.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
going to set a genre. It's going to set the game industry on
That's
fire. But yeah, you definitely want something. There's got to be a reason to buy your console. And it's so funny because I was looking through all of the major. I was looking at the Gizmodo and stuff, but pretty much every major console I was looking at their launch titles, and some of them are surprisingly shallow.
I think there's a reason for that. I think it's more of like a modern new age thing to have a console seller title because and I was looking back too on the previous ones where I was like, these are some good games, but these aren't what somebody would, swing out for a PS2 for.
right.
And then I go, oh, the PS4 and the Xbox generation honestly had terrible launch titles.
Mhm.
They were bad. And now you look at this one and a big reason a lot of people bought a PS5 was for Demon Souls.
Mm-hmm.
That was a console seller.
Spider-Man.
And it was an exclusive. And a lot of people bought it for Spider-Man. That was an exclusive.
Yep.
And a lot of people bought the Switch for Zelda. And I think that's a newer thing compared to the old ones.
You got a packing game with the old ones, right? That's another
You got
thing.
a packing
Yeah.
game, and then especially with older ones, we hadn't had time to establish a franchise of this is so great, we need to package it, other than the Super Nintendo.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and I think for console manufacturers, I think Nintendo does the best of
Mhm.
that. But also, they've had the most time to get there.
I think the GameCube was their weakest.
It's
And
fire.
it was still a great launch. So
I was actually shocked at
there's
how
some
strong.
Yeah, same. I never had a GameCube growing up. Never was a huge GameCube guy. But there's some killer titles right off, all timers right off the bat.
I want to say overall, I think 64 was the weakest.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, 'cause it's
Um,
two.
the week
It
There's
had
two
two,
games,
and
but-
the only saving grace it had was Super Mario
which is
64.
an all-timer, but yeah.
So that's why I say, in comparison, GameCube didn't have that heavy hitter title. It had a great collection, but it didn't have that big
It had a
one.
lot of stuff that was already on other consoles,
Mhm.
but it had Luigi's Mansion and Rogue Squadron 2, which were pretty big titles for it.
Same deal with Luigi's Mansion. Luigi, that was first Luigi Mansion
Right.
game.
No one really knew what-
Everyone was like, do we want to play with Luigi? We're here for Mario.
Right.
Little
Yeah.
did we know.
And
Nintendo will take a gamble like that every once in a while.
Yeah.
And that's turned into how many Luigi's Mansions games are we up to now?
3.
It's cool how a launch title where they take a risk turns into a franchise. Nintendo's great at it, honestly. I know I have a screenshot somewhere with these launch GameCube games. Where is this?
I'm sorry, I don't know what my phone was playing.
Oh, you're good.
I had a list of
Oh, here it
just
is.
a couple stand up, but go ahead or you can read your list.
I mean, they had Twilight Princess also, right? Or was that
It
was
was
Wii?
the remake.
That was Wii.
It was the Wii
Sorry.
Twilight Princess.
Where the fuck is this goddamn GameCube list?
Oh my.
Here it is.
It was Rogue Squadron.
Super Monkey Ball was a great multiplayer game too. That's
Mhm.
something else, quite frankly, I look for, especially back then when you had multiple console ports. we didn't have online connectivity back then. Like playing with friends, having a game you can get your friends over and show off your new system's a big deal.
Yeah, no doubt.
GameCube did a good job of it with Super Monkey Ball.
I mean, Crazy
Football.
Taxi was an exclusive, wasn't it?
It was a Dreamcast game. Yeah, so it was a remake.
No, it wasn't, but it was a great game. Dave
It
Mirra
was
too.
really just Rogue Squadron then and Luigi's Mansion. I
Right.
think everything else
It's already
was on another
something, 'cause
console.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was a big launch game for it, but
Mhm.
it is already
Yeah.
out on PS2
Yeah.
and Xbox.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But
Wave
Well,
Race.
Batman Vengeance, was that an exclusive?
No, it's on everything.
It's
I
on
couldn't
everything.
remember if
Wave
that
Race,
one
though.
was.
Like revitalizing an old franchise. Nintendo will do that every once in a while too. Sometimes they take 20 years with Metroid Prime. But no, GameCube is cool because it kind of took a risk. The whole console itself was just kind of a risk, right? Like Nintendo's great at just doing their own thing, ignoring the noise. And I think GameCube's a pretty solid lineup. You've got some exclusives, but you've also got established franchises where they do play it safe for the casual consumer also, like Madden. There really wasn't. That was the first like modern Madden game on a Nintendo console, or 3D Madden, if you will. So it's pretty cool. They play it safe, but also they know their audience, where it's like, hey, we're going to sell to the core general audience. They do a great job of it. Even the Wii, they have a pretty good mix in the Wii. Also, they have a lot of like licensed games. They have a Zelda remake. It's not necessarily a new game, but using the controls. Another thing I like for is like showing off your console, right? Like not necessarily the graphics, but that too. We did a great job with it. Switch did a great job with it with like 1-2 Switch. Not a great game, but it shows you like, hey, here's some things you're gonna do. PS5, they did a great job with it with the packing game with the controller with the robot. What was the name of it? Name escapes me.
Astro's Playroom?
Yeah. Something like that I think is cool too, where it's like, hey, let me show you what this console can do versus your old one, like justifying your purchase, if you will.
We had the best packing game of all time. Like,
Yeah.
Wii Sports
Oh,
is
yeah.
the perfect
God,
fucking
dude.
game for
Yeah.
to advertise your console with, and like
I don't think that there can be a pack-in game that will supersede how perfect Wii Sports
no,
was.
like how could it?
Yeah.
Because it was literally a system seller, and like, you look at the Wii numbers, it's the most selling console of all time, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
No. I think
Is it
it's
two?
the
It's up there.
PS2.
PS2 or Wii, it's got to be one of those, right?
It might be the Switch
I know
now.
Switch is climbing. Switch is projected to pass it this year, I believe, if it sells the way they think it's
I
going.
think it's
to.
PS2, Switch, and Wii currently.
Let me look.
The DS family is kind of weird, though. Technically,
Yeah,
I
but
think it's
handhelds
the
are
DS
like-
family.
PS2,
PS2.
number one
Okay.
with 155 million. DS in second, 154.2.
Yeah, but they that's the whole family. That's
Right,
not just
right.
one. So I kind of don't
Switch
count that.
number
There
3,
it is.
141.32. Game Boy Color kind of doesn't count, but
Yeah.
118 million. PS4 over 2, that's surprising.
Okay.
117.2. PlayStation 1.
Where's the
fuck's-
Wii?
Oh my
It's
god,
under
look.
it.
Under the PS1?
Yeah.
What?
Hey, I don't know how. Did I miss PS2?
PS2
Yeah,
was
PS2 number one.
155. Yeah, okay. I'm
Okay,
tripping.
well, I guess I gave the Wii more credit than I thought.
I mean-
PlayStation's murdering everybody, apparently.
Yeah,
Good
apparently.
lord.
Mhm.
Jeez. And think about if they would actually get PS5s out at launch, like how much higher it would be.
I mean, it's still the
climbing,
biggest
like- oh,
the
yeah.
biggest selling of this generation so far.
Yeah, it's
I
great
mean,
past
until the
Xbox
Switch
One.
2 comes out
Right.
or whatever this next console is.
If-
Re-switch.
If it
The
ever comes out.
Re-Switch.
Switch you.
The
Please,
swoosh.
please do
Switch
switch
you.
you, dude.
But yeah, no doubt. I mean, like that's the thing. Packing game can really, because people generally think of the Wii library being like shovelware centric, but like that first game you got on it was Wii Sports, and you were like, oh wow, this is
Or
gonna change gaming.
it was that one or the Mario. Didn't it come with the? It came with a Mario
Super
game.
Mario U. What is
Deluxe or whatever.
Something.
Maybe
that? Was the
Oh, there.
handheld. So there,
Yeah.
I don't remember. I can't keep these.
we're all
There was one
we're
that
Nintendo
came.
people here, guys.
Yeah, I didn't get a Wii, so I
I mean,
never had one.
I don't have
Speaking
one
of
of
Mario,
those.
though, like NES, there's another great example of a packing game. Like, yeah, Mario, I think would have done fine on its own, but the fact they included it with Dunk, everybody knows that. You know what I mean? Like, what a great system seller to be like, hey, you get to use your new gun controller and you get to use your normal controller to
Yeah.
play. Arguably the best platform of all
I
time.
think if you're studying a console launch, like NES is a really interesting one.
My opinion about the NES is they're classics, but is that shadowed by nostalgia? Because it was the first one. It's like, okay, these are decent games, but do we remember them fondly because of nostalgia's sake, or were they actually incredibly great games on launch?
I'll make a quick argument to say why they were good games. You gotta think when the NES came out, they were trying to revive people getting in, like even giving video games a chance, because like Atari and all that shit killed the whole console market. So every game was kind of selected to cater to something. They're all pretty well crafted games, and
I mean, it's a big library. I'm just trying to put myself, because I wasn't
sure,
even born yet, so
18,
like I don't know.
great.
So I'm just wondering, like, there's a lot of games on that list that people are like all time great, and I'm like, is it though? Because it kind of plays like it's just like golf. I'm like, okay, it's golf. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sure, but there's casual games on it. So you have your sports games, and you have like your Nintendo centric games. Like Ice Climbers was a black box game. There's almost something for everyone. Even the stupid Gyromite, which was like basically made to be a toy because they didn't think companies would buy it if it didn't have a toy pack like available to it, which is like a really interesting examination of like the whole. That's why it was labeled as an entertainment system instead of a video game console to begin with. So. But to me, it's like everything seems so like Excite Bike. That's like a really people who had Nintendos for the whole lifespan like still kept Excite Bike. So it was an extremely fun game. I mean, Hogan's Alley's in movies. It's Back to the Future. Like, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, looking at this list, I feel like there's
kind of something for everyone.
There's good variety is my thing.
with the limitations of a Nintendo,
Right,
sure.
sure. There wasn't like RPGs and shit.
Yeah, you can't really. I mean, you can on a Nintendo, but I don't feel like they. I mean, I feel like Atari had some where they were like trying to tell somewhat of a story, but like there's just
Not like,
That's what I was going to
not
compare it
quite
to. If you look at the
there.
2600 launch, you've got Air Sea Battle, Basic Math, Blackjack, Combat, Indy 500, Starship, Street Racer, Surround, and Video Olympics.
There's only 2 of those that are memorable.
So that's like the competition, right? But like, yeah, there's only literally 2 of those, and even then,
One's because I had a funky controller, not because it's a great game. Like
Nintendo does a great job of like giving you variety with every console launch. I feel like, except for the 64, obviously.
I mean, the ColecoVision had Smurf Rescue and Gargamel's Castle.
See, at least,
Vision's launch was fire.
So
at least they had something you recognize, you know. So I appreciate them trying that. Where it's like, hey, we got to compete against this juggernaut. Let's at least get some licensed games in there.
Yeah, Donkey Kong was a launch game.
Yeah, and back then it was more about bringing the arcade home,
Right.
Instead of like having a system. So
and that's why I mean, like, I agree with that point of like, there's kind of something for everybody.
yeah,
As much as they could,
Sure.
at that
Yeah,
time.
limited, but
for a first effort, it's a pretty
Yeah.
pretty good list.
I think if you compare like it's a true competition, you're talking like, because it kind of came out by itself, but then you had some ones that kind of like revived home console. You had Turbo come out and stuff like that, and like that's not a great launch library, honestly. Like the NES it feels so like focused because they did focus testing stuff before it came out. They like very selectively how they marketed it and calling it what they did even. So like it felt like a very calculated. There's a lot of other, especially farther down the line, you see launch titles where it's like, crap, let's just get this thing out for before holiday time. Hopefully there's enough games to support it. You have like the Jaguar, it came out with like 3 games and they're all ass.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that like, I don't know, Nintendo's remembered as the one with a good library, but like I'm looking at this Atari 7800 list. I'm like, you got Asteroids, Centipedes, Dig Dug, Joust, Galaga, Food Fight, Miss Pac-Man. Like those are heavy hitters,
sure,
but they didn't live. They didn't live, and like the Atari just couldn't keep up.
It's also the 3rd time those games had already come out for Atari consoles at home in like 6 years.
Well, the thing is, that's what they wanted with the 2600. They wanted the arcade at home, but they just didn't hardware limitations. They just couldn't. That was the first console they could, and they did succeed. But that goddamn thing cost so much money, nobody could afford it back then. And they're going to be like, you need to buy a 3rd Atari. No,
right?
Especially if you did buy the 5200.
Those are all like Hall of Fame games, like straight up. Yeah. Those are all time classics.
And
like,
those are the best versions too.
By a list like an incredible lineup that I feel like would blow a Nintendo out of the water, but it's the timing.
Yep.
That'd
be like putting out a Switch 2, but just being remastered Wii U games again.
Yeah.
Like we're buying this a 3rd time already.
Because that's
a
a
way shorter period.
That's a year or 2 away from the NES, right? So like that's a year or 2 away from Mario.
Right. It's like
horrible timing. So horrible timing. Atari never had this foresight to see the future.
It was 1 year.
Yeah.
That's a year.
You look at the difference and you're like, my God, this is so much more advanced than that, you know?
That's what Atari can never see the future. That's the problem. They were stuck in the past.
You know what though? I don't know how Sega did it.
Yeah.
That Master System. 2 games, bro. Yeah. That's funny.
And it was like the European console, right? Like they took over Europe with that console.
If you look at the other like that in the US launches, they're fire, and then there's ours, and you're like, all right, man.
What the fuck?
I wonder why it didn't catch on here. Like,
I mean, I feel like the same thing with the Genesis. I feel like the Mega Drive got a lot more.
Yeah, no doubt. I had Golden Axe and stuff at launch. And like we got a decent little lineup, but like nothing like that. We got Altered Beast and Space Harrier 2.
What is that? 3rd gen? Is that what we're in?
I think so, right?
Yeah, 16-bit.
Oh, Master System's in 3rd gen. Okay.
Yeah. But Sega did it right with the pack-in game to sell. Like Altered Beast was great, and then Sonic was obviously the system seller. They followed my tenets here, looking for variety and looking for a system seller, showing off the hardware. Genesis did a great job of all that.
Their whole marketing and stuff was like excellent. I mean, it was very targeted. Like, we are the underdog here. This is how you do it. And you see companies like Microsoft just settling to be in 3rd place, where Sega was like, we're gonna beat them. F this. Look, like, games play faster. It's adult oriented stuff. Like, the reason they made a dent, and they came out with a good lineup to start off with. Like, these are fast games that literally would be glitchy messes on the Super Nintendo. Now, then again, you look at the Super Nintendo library and you're like, my God, but. Yeah, that's
Yeah, Super Nintendo had some absolute all timers that they don't have a huge like sprawling list like PS2, but I think it also speaks from like quality standards. Like,
I think that's why the Nintendo library doesn't stand up to a Super, because of that that hardware jump.
It's insane.
There are so many more things that people could do with a Super Nintendo that like blossomed. All of the genres came out in that, and that's why Nintendo's a great console, but I don't own many Nintendo games because they don't have the genre I care about, because they just don't have the memory and the capacity to do it.
You could play a Super Nintendo game now and still be thoroughly entertained.
Yeah.
There's games that go for the Super Nintendo 16-bit era design now that come out new. There's not a whole lot of NES ones, but like...
Well, we might be talking about the
best.
Super Nintendo later this year, but
Ooh.
keep your eye out for that one.
I will say the Super Nintendo did a great job of like showing off the hardware, like you were saying. Like Pilot Wings looks insane now compared to other Super Nintendo games. F-Zero runs super fast. It was basically a big middle finger to be like, hey, look, this thing is way more powerful. And it's funny. I mean, I know it's apples and oranges, but comparing it nowadays, like, the PS4 compared to the 5 at launch and the Xbox One compared to the X at launch, I was like, man, you can barely tell the difference. Like, some bullshit.
What's the thing?
Back then, it was like
It was a huge
graphical.
jump, yeah.
That's how I know the fucking aliens are real, all right? Because
Yeah.
it looks so crazy in that short amount of time.
But back then, too, Nintendo took a fairly big risk. Shit was so much like has to be compatible, and they were like, your NES games aren't going to work on this thing. So they make it worth it, and they came out with a fire lineup, dude. Like,
We're just at that point where like you've hit a limit, right? Like when something grows so exponentially so quickly, eventually it's just going to level out.
Yeah.
And like we're at that leveling out point now.
it feels like
We don't have the jump between a Game Boy and a Game Boy Advance, or a Nintendo and a Super Nintendo. Like, we don't have that anymore. Or between a Super Nintendo and a PS1, which isn't even like 10 years later.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta think 10 years now, it kind of just looks the same.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, the mocap's better.
Right. Well, plus
The
these
particle
consoles
effects are cool.
These new consoles, I think I'm going to say a bold statement here. I think this has probably been the worst console generation ever. They haven't even lived up to what they advertise. Like, we don't have 60 frames, 4K resolution. We don't have ray tracing that runs right. These consoles have been a dud, man. I think the games at launch probably didn't help either. We're in the age of remakes. Even PS5, the best-selling PS5 game at launch was a remake. Like, sucks. I miss the days of old. Like, even look at the 360. Like, Microsoft gave up. They took a huge, like, that launch library for the 360 is underappreciated for sure. It's the days gone of launch libraries. It's a joke. They took a lot of gambles. Like, you have existing properties, but you have a lot of variety. You've got some system sellers. You've got some things that show the hardware. It's a good mix, and we kind of fell off that wagon. It's unfortunate.
I think that's like a deeper topic for another conversation, but it comes down to you have got 2 consoles to pick from now.
Yep.
That's really it.
True.
Nintendo is like on its own little land outside somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't even consider Nintendo in the same running anymore.
Stay near a handheld.
Like, if you have an Xbox, you probably also have a Switch. If you have a PlayStation, you probably also have a Switch.
Yep.
Like, they've done their own thing for so long that they haven't really adjusted the formula, and they don't need to.
Yeah.
So you've got 2 to compete with, and now we're at that point where it's less about creativity and creating something new and wanting people to invest in what you have, and it's more about what makes me the most money.
Yep.
And it's live service and it's remakes, because you can always get cash off nostalgia.
Yep.
And we're seeing it with movies too. It's not just games, it's all other media. TV shows, movies. You're getting, TV shows of things that have already been made, like Fallout and Last of Us. And they're successful because people already know about those pre-established franchises.
Right.
Everything's really safe now.
They're playing everything safe.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's taking risks anymore. And when you do take a risk, you get shuttered.
Yep.
You take a risk and you make a game like Hi-Fi Rush, and your studio gets shuttered after winning so many awards because they want to prioritize the live service.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So the day and age of that happening is gone. It's just gone.
Very curious to see
modern
what this
gaming.
next launch, like this PS6 and
Xbox
540,
won't have
whatever.
Xbox
Xbox-
720, make it happen.
Xbox won't have a console. They're going to have an app system on whatever.
Yeah.
Basically, it's going to be the Doom of everything. Okay, you can play Doom on a TV. You can play Xbox Game Pass on a
I think it's
fridge.
going to be a Switch clone, or it's going to be like a streaming device.
It'll be
More of a Steam Deck, I guess, but,
PlayStation's
yeah.
already started it with
Yep,
their
portable.
little handheld thing that's not really portable,
Yeah.
but it is.
Yep.
So I think we're done with launch libraries. I think we're done with launch libraries to get you to buy the console day one. And I think Sony's more in that line of, we know we're going to have an exclusive coming up and it's going to be on this console. I didn't buy a PS5 for Demon's Souls and
Right.
Spider-Man. I bought it for Final Fantasy.
Right.
That's
It
what
was
I bought
coming.
it for. And I knew it was coming. And so that's kind of what we're in, is this less of that now,
Mhm.
especially with Xbox.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people bought an Xbox for Halo Infinite, and that whole thing happened, which I think the game was fine, but it wasn't.
It's great now.
It wasn't what was advertised.
That's the problem. Now we're in this, it's like you're saying, down the road, they're going to fix it even if it's fucked up at launch.
And down the road, everyone bought one for Elder Scrolls 6.
Yep.
We can admit that that's people like, I want an Xbox because I really want to play Elder Scrolls 6,
Not
or I
necessarily
want
Elder
to play the
Scrolls,
next
yeah.
Fallout.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they're cross-platform, but like Bethesda games are synonymous with Xbox, in my opinion, in the same way that Final Fantasy is synonymous with PlayStation anymore. So it's like, oh, I got an
Well,
Xbox. for
Xbox
that.
owns them now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Xbox owns them now, and then it's like, I don't know when Starfield initially got announced, but that was a console seller, and it wasn't a launch title.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So,
Seriously, it'll be a PlayStation exclusive.
but now here's the problem: is you've got Xbox saying we'll put our stuff on anything.
Yeah, which
Because they're less concerned about fighting on a console war, and they want you to buy their service.
Yeah, and they started
We're
out
in the
as
age of
software.
services
Right.
now. We're not in that anymore.
Microsoft started out as software developer, so I think
Mhm.
they're just going back to their roots, kind of, and that's not good for consoles. But they're kind of like, well, fuck you. You can just download Game Pass for whatever. You're right. I wish I could disagree with you and say that we're not done. We're still going to have cool launches. It's going to be
We
fun
won't.
staying at line at midnight.
even the last
But that
two-
doesn't exist anymore either.
The PS4 launch, it only had a few games. I guess like
Killzone.
Infamous, a really bad Killzone game that was just Killzone by title.
Yeah.
And you know what's crazy
Yeah.
to me is like the PlayStation 4 launch wasn't that great for
Mhm.
one. For two, it had no backwards compatibility,
Right.
and somehow it is one of the most selling consoles of all time.
It ended up being great. And it was a way better console than a competition.
Yeah,
Like,
'cause the first Xbox One was
came out
Still- it
dog
was,
shit.
yeah, I do remember
It
that.
had a better launch lineup.
but even then, it had a better launch lineup.
yeah, but the console
People like
was
wanted the console,
terrible.
and there's people who don't care how bad the console is. They're like, I'm committed to this console because of these games,
Yeah.
and it's less of that now. It's less of I'm committed to the console because of games.
It's interesting you bring up the backwards comp thing because like the Series X didn't have a great launch lineup. You had like pretty much Yakuza was the only game that was launching with the console, which as a fan I was excited. Still haven't fucking played it. Bought it day one,
But
their selling point was like, hey, look,
Mhm.
backwards comp and it runs better.
mhm.
I think that's an interesting thing too. Like going forward, that's something I would
They
very
were
much like to
reverting
see.
back to like you
Yeah.
know,
That's
back in the
and that's what
day.
made the PlayStation 2 so
Yep.
so big, and the PlayStation 3 arguably as well. The problem with that one is it just was expensive. But it was like, hey, this is the cheapest Blu-ray player on the market.
Right.
And you can play the previous two consoles.
Mm-hmm.
And what can the 360 do?
Right.
HD DVD.
Yeah.
On a separate thing you gotta buy.
Yep.
So like,
Right.
the Xbox 360 was a lot more popular because of the price.
The online service too.
100%. I mean, PlayStation lasted the longest with a free online service.
Yeah,
Sony was a different animal back then, though.
Yeah.
Like, now they're a completely different company.
no doubt.
It's either the price is going to get you the most selling, or it's the games.
Yep.
And when you don't have the games, you better have the price.
Oh, the Sega Saturn.
Yeah.
They had great arcade ports, but the price fucked them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yep,
and then
it's
they
true.
came out with no cohesion with the company because the launch lineup was pretty damn nice for Saturn. Honestly, like it's just you knew the PlayStation was coming. Like, why do you care?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
PlayStation was groundbreaking.
And then literally the way they announced the price, like same day, $399, like killer, dude, or $290, whatever the fuck it was.
I think it was $299.
Yeah, $100 less. I know that. Yeah,
How much was the 64 on launch? Do you guys
I
know?
want to say it was 300, right? Too much is the correct answer.
Because that was the detriment of the 64. I feel like is yes, you had a heavy hitter on launch, like a big one, like
seller.
game changer, 3D. Technological marvel in 3D was 200, but the PlayStation already had a couple years of established.
Right.
Like we've already got a PlayStation for 2 years. We just spent $300 on, and I've got quite a few games already to play for it. And you want me to buy a 64 for 2 games?
Felt futuristic, CD, and I feel like we're going back to cartridges, really. So
Yeah.
It had a lot not working for it.
Yep.
There was a lot of crazy things that came out of the 64, but it's just timing.
Yeah.
It's another thing of 64 was timing, man.
I'm glad it's not my job
Marketing
to be
and
like,
stuff,
this
too.
is when we're doing
Yeah.
it.
It felt like a kid console versus like,
Yeah, it was geared towards the younger
which
audience.
Nintendo's always kind of been, but
Yeah.
it's a thing. I think especially the 90s were so like edgy.
I feel like the Super Nintendo was less so. I feel like they tried to make the Super Nintendo like, hey, there's a lot of things for adults on here too.
Sure. And it's the reason why it was able to like, that's the only thing Sega had going for it initially when Nintendo kind of opened their, like they remember putting Doom on it was a big deal. Kind of like, we're not just a kid's console.
I
Yeah.
think it's weird because like GameCube era, there wasn't a ton of third-party support for Nintendo, and now they're getting kind of back into that. Obviously, their first-party games are their system sellers, right? But now they're having third-party support.
Oh, there's so much now. And guess what it all is? It's remasters and remakes.
Yeah.
Because that's what all the other third-party third-party developers are doing for other consoles is they're just doing remasters and remakes.
It's depressing. I didn't really realize going in this episode it'd be like, we're not going to really experience a console launch the same anymore until you brought that point up, and it's really hard to argue. Like, it's just
Even then, the last couple have been...
That's what I'm saying. I don't think we're going to hit like there's not going to be a whole lot of competition. If Xbox goes forward with a console, which is a serious if at this point, it's Xbox and PlayStation. PlayStation's so far ahead that there's no real competition. It's just kind of an alternative, not a competition at this point.
I think it's a surefire thing that we're past the point of disc media. I think the next iteration is going to be digital.
I agree.
Hands
unfortunately.
down.
Get more and more people to buy into it every day too.
I think that Xbox has realized their mistake of releasing 2 separate X and an S, because honestly they could have had great things if they didn't release 2 separate versions at the same time. Yep. PlayStation didn't do that. They've got a disc and a non-disc, but the guts are the same.
Yeah.
So you make that game, you don't have to make it for 2 separate consoles. You don't have to make a shitty version just to make sure the shitty version plays.
I mean, basically neutered all of their games and make it run on that.
So
the reason Halo's development went to hell.
Yep.
And there's a lot of third-party developers say, like, hey, it'd be fine if it wasn't for the S.
I mean, they made the exception for Baldur's Gate because they saw how much money they lost on it. And so now the question is, okay, we're for sure not doing a disc on both. I don't think if Microsoft does a console, they're not doing 2 different ones.
Definitely not.
But that's the question, is if they're going to do one. Because they've already established you can play it on a TV. You can hook your Xbox controller up to a TV
everything's
with
an
Bluetooth.
Xbox at this point. It's all streaming, and like it works pretty well. I've used it, so definitely don't think we're going to get...
And then you run into that problem of, are they going to make everyone who develops games for Microsoft streaming service compatible with cloud and compatible with however controller input? Because there's some games I've tried to play on the cloud that don't work with a controller the way it does.
Yep.
So
I'm willing to bet they'll do something to get it around. They'll probably make it like browser based. So that way everything, like play Xbox games on your PlayStation or your phone.
Yeah, but then what's the control input like?
Right.
Yep. Better Bluetooth controller. But then you gotta carry around a fucking controller. Like, I don't want to do that.
That was the whole push of like, oh hey, cloud-based streaming on your phone. You can just use it has a screen touch controls. But I'm like, where are my bumpers? There's no bumpers on there.
Yeah, there's definitely some
analog
games that
sticks
work
are difficult
better
to
than
use.
others. Like, could you imagine trying to play Halo with touch controls?
I played Battlefield on my phone, and it was hilarious. It was
difficult.
Wild. Yeah. Like we were cracking up. Like this isn't real life. And like as soon as you play it, you're like, oh.
So it's like
watching the menu load. I'm like, this is going to be insane. And you play it, you're like, this is so difficult.
Is their new console release going to be a controller with the code to get your subscription, and that's the only way to get a new account? Is you have to make sure you buy a controller too.
Yeah.
Like they're not even going to be like, oh, you can make people have previous controllers, they can get new account codes. Nope, everyone's coming in with it because they don't make shit on hardware.
Yeah.
At all. Anyways, that's so beyond what we were talking about.
Yeah, no, it's interesting for the future though, for sure. Like I said, I wish I could disagree with you, but I think you're 100% correct. And it's sad because I miss those days. I miss, working 12-hour days and being like, I gotta go pick up my PS4 and like hooking the console for the first time, throwing the only game you have. Like,
there's something special about like going to a midnight release. They
Yeah,
don't have those anymore.
Yeah, I picked up my PS4. I remember I was actually working overnight shifts. I was like, I got to leave early. Like, I'm going to pick up my PlayStation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember walking into a Best Buy and just like PlayStation and just picking it up, just walking on out.
Yeah.
Like, hell yeah, I'm going to go home and hook this sucker up. Like, we're not going to have...
remember like getting your PS5s and be like, I hope no one robs us.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not joking.
I went to go pick it up at Best Buy and one of you guys was like, do you want me to go with you? And I was like, no, I'm okay.
Yeah, the craze was real, man.
That was pretty wild.
I remember literally driving in the pouring rain at like 5 o'clock in the work and being like, someone said it in the group text was like, PS5's on Best Buy. And I was like,
that was me.
Sherry, here's your... I'm like, no, wait, just drive. And she's like, what? I'm like, just steer the wheel.
Yeah, I was literally on the way. I remember this because I was on the way to work and I was going over that bridge. Y'all know what bridge I'm talking about. Yeah. And it's pouring. It is dark as hell. It is what, 5:15 in the morning, I think.
It's early.
Because we have to get there at 5:30. So it was probably 5:15, 5:20. And we're like literally all week, we've been on all of the websites, refreshing. And supposedly like Best Buy was getting a restock. So I'm in the car driving pitch black with my phone, look at the browser open, and I'm just hitting the refresh button until it pops up. And it literally popped up as I'm going over this bridge, and I had to frantically text everybody. I was like, it's up! It's up! Oh, I almost crashed the car, but I was like, ah!
I think we all got our PS5s at the same time.
We did, yeah.
And I remember you walking in, literally like, it's not taking my card! It's not taking my card! Like, as we're walking all the way down past maintenance, you're standing there like this, like, I got the PlayStation! I got the Xbox!
I'm sitting there trying to do a morning meeting, but like, everyone like, y'all need to hang on, because I'm trying to get my damn PlayStation.
Yeah. It's funny, man, how much it's changed. I do miss just grabbing games at midnight, and then I think it's kind of fun just like, oh shit, PS2 is a great example. There's 30 games at launch, or maybe 29.
Mm-hmm.
What do I want to pick up?
You've got choices.
Yeah, you're with your friends. Okay, you get these two. I'll get these two. Like, you know what I mean?
That's what we did with the PS4 and Xbox One. Like, we lived together at the time. And I was like, all right, I'm going to grab these. You grab these. That's how we did it.
I mean, I admittedly bought a PS5, and I did not play a PS5 game until Horizon Forbidden West came out. I played PS4 games on that sucker.
I'm trying to think of what I played on it first. I don't think I bought shit for it either.
Nope.
What's the most anticipated game at launch you can think of off the top of your head that was like, I need to buy this game?
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild, hands down.
Yeah. I think for universally speaking, for sure, it's up there.
Breath of the Wild is one of the most, that was a pure system seller.
Mm-hmm.
That is 100% the reason why the Switch just flew off. I mean, you have to think what did the Wii U have? You can't just credit it toward, it's a Nintendo console, because the Wii U has nothing.
PS3 and 360 games.
It had nothing.
It was like the big one.
Yeah, that was the exclusive.
Real talk, wasn't it?
And everybody was convinced that we were going to get, a Zelda, but they just had nothing for so long, and people were holding out because it was expensive.
Right.
And
it was an expensive console. Games. And yeah, it was a lot of Wii games, and it had the benefit of being backwards compatible. But people were like, I already have a Wii. What do I need a Wii U for? If they don't have anything out for it yet, I'll wait until the Zelda gets announced. And then the Zelda gets announced at the end of the life cycle, and they said, by the way, it's also coming out on the new one. Why would I buy a Wii? Yeah. Breath of the Wild was 100% the success of the Switch.
Wii U launches ass looking at
this, dude. It's terrible.
Yeah, New Super Mario Brothers U, but I think that's a remake, right? New Super Mario Brothers, it's a remake of that.
I think it was on.
There's no Nintendo Land, Rabbids Land.
Yeah.
Evo Fest.
It's a Tank is an exclusive. But third party.
I think that was put this with any of them? No.
No.
Exactly.
Black Ops 2 was a launch game for the Wii U
less than a month ago.
As far as the console with the most anticipated game ever, it is 100% Breath of the Wild. And I don't think there's a single game that was a launch game that was anything more hyped than that.
Damn.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
I think there's other games that were going to come out for a console that got extremely hyped up, and people, bought consoles for those.
Super Mario 64 was one. That was a big deal when it came out.
Yeah.
Not Breath of the Wild.
But again, you had to buy it.
People who don't play games went and got.
What was the other game for 64? There was only two.
There was Breath of the Wild was sold out everywhere.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was easier to get a Switch than Breath of the Wild, which was wild to me. I don't understand how that happened. But it was easier to get a Switch than a Breath of the Wild.
I feel like there's stuff that comes out later past the launch window that kind of help push system sales. Like Pokemon for Game Boy is a pretty example.
Mhm.
Game Boy had been out like
Mhm.
for a hot minute, and then Pokemon came out and like basically like a mini relaunch. Like,
And I think that's why the DS family did so well, because everyone knew like a Pokemon game was going to come out. Whether or not it comes out on launch, it's going to come out. And now like Pokemon does not sell Switch consoles.
Because it runs
It
like ass on
doesn't.
Switch. Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, we've all seen that like
Just proves we need
People-
a Switch too.
people who are committed to Pokemon will still play it.
right.
But like, I love Pokemon. I don't think I'm going to buy Pokemon day one ever again.
Better be
Well,
on Switch
Pokemon,
2, I
I've
know
not
that.
played it because Barry's experience was so bad. I was
Ever
like, I'm
again.
good. I think I'm good.
I'm gonna have a hot take here. Arceus is the best Switch game.
I
on
really want to play
PlayStation.
that.
Or on Switch rather. Yeah, it's the best one.
That's a thing
It's
that's
just violent and fucking. Whew, it's rough, dude. It's chugs. That's a thing. Like a lot of these games, I think on Switch just hold it back. But
Mhm.
this is a different topic. But good God, we need a Switch 2. At least it's finally confirmed.
They I mean, everyone really wants it, but here's the thing: is we're not going to have a Breath of the Wild for the Switch 2. There's not going to be a game that they're going to talk about, even if Metroid Prime 4 gets announced
It's
as
a
a launch
different audience.
game.
yeah.
It's not going to be levels of Breath of the
Not the needle
Wild.
mover that Zelda is.
I mean,
Mhm.
I'm a huge Metroid fan, but I realize it's a different crowd.
It'll sell consoles
Yeah.
for sure.
Not the same though.
It's a great launch title. If it gets launched with it, I think it would be a perfect choice.
Make it happen.
But it's never. I don't think we're going to replicate Breath of the Wild ever again.
Very hard to.
That was crazy.
I
Very, very
agree.
anticipated. I couldn't even think of another game that would warrant something like that at all. I think that as successful as Elden Ring is, and Elden Ring 2 would not sell at the level that Zelda
No,
would.
it's far different audience, like way more hardcore audience versus
Mhm.
like is a great selling game, but it ain't
I
selling.
don't know, bro. You played Breath of the Wild. It's fucking hard. It plays like that's what's funny. But yeah, I agree. I mean, Zelda's surpassed pop culture. It's surpassed video games.
Mhm.
Like it's on its own
It's
planet
really
for
only
sure.
Nintendo stuff that has like
Yeah.
to that level.
That's why they
There's other
have
stuff they made
Theme
movies
parks
and
for
shit and
Nintendo,
stuff, but like
movies.
as far as like kids and grandma, like Nintendo, it's all Nintendo properties, man. Pokemon, Mario, Zelda.
And that's why I say like Nintendo's kind of out there on their
Yeah.
own. You know, like
Good for them.
they don't need to compete.
No,
Nintendo or Sony and Microsoft could crash and burn, and Nintendo wouldn't feel it.
Yep.
They're their own
different
thing,
audience.
and they are very fortunate
Yeah.
that they don't have to do that.
So you asked what like the most anticipated. What was your personal like as far as a console coming out? Like I need to get a console for this game, even if it wasn't a launch game. I guess Barry kind of answered it earlier, I think, but
If it's a Final Fantasy, I'm there.
yeah. So it's like actually I'm gonna start playing this Rebirth finally. I'm really excited, but that was a huge reason why I wanted to get on
Oh, yeah.
PlayStation because I was like, need to play this day one.
I think
which I didn't end up doing, but
that was one that we all knew was coming out on the PS5, and I said I don't care about anything else except that game. And then I knew whatever 16 one this was going to be on this. Outside of that, I couldn't care. I didn't know Dragon's Dogma 2 was going to come out. Didn't know about anything else that was going to come out on that console except that game. But I can't think of another one because I PS3 I bought same thing. I was like Final Fantasy is going to be on that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a broken record, so
Yeah.
I was too young, but I remember like when the Spider-Man movie came out in 2002, they were like, "Oh yeah, we're doing a PlayStation game," and I was like, "Fuck, I have an Xbox. I'm gonna have to buy a PlayStation." And it multi-released, thankfully. But that's the thing. I don't think I've ever. I usually now buy both. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and sit on an island. But I mean, that's the thing. A lot of these console games I want, like Halo Infinite's a great example. I was like, finally, we gotta save Halo. Turned out to be a fucking dud. It's tough, man. For me, I'm just looking for a good variety of games to play at launch. So sitting there and focusing on one, I can't really honestly think of one off the top of my head. I think the 360 did a really good job of like variety. And PS2, obviously, with 30 games, like, duh, there's variety. It's
I think that era, like I didn't get a PS3
Yeah, it's
at
that
launch, but
era.
I was like, there's gonna be a time where I have to do whatever I can to get one so I can play
Metal Gear
Solid
4, I knew was
4.
coming.
Like,
Yeah.
It took a long time for the PlayStation to gain momentum, the PlayStation 3 to gain momentum, but same deal as like people knew Metal
Yeah.
Gear. Metal Gear was a big deal.
yeah, no doubt.
I bought
especially in
a
that time
PS3 off
period.
my buddy in high school, just, you know, doing yard work and shit, just to be like, I gotta play. It wasn't anywhere near launch, but I was
Yeah.
like, I gotta play PS,
Mhm.
like, Metal Gear. So, yeah, it's tough. It's so different now, too. It's hard to think
We also know
Back then, but
nowadays
now.
it's going to take a year or two before you start getting. This is what they actually can do with the damn thing. Because like a lot of times there's like multi-release for the last gen and this new one. So you're like, is this even like a PS5 game? Because there's the PS4 versions coming out the same day. Like there's small examples like, Demon's Souls was a PS5 exclusive, but like a lot of crap. And Xbox got really hindered by this because they had to book it. But it's like so many times, even a good generation past, like Xbox One, PS4, there was same thing. There was games coming out for PS3 and 360 still that were coming out day one on.
It's kind of crazy though when you think about it, because like Persona 5 was such a big deal when that game came out. Huge deal, crazy seller.
Yeah,
and it came out on both.
Yep,
came out on PS3 and PS4, and people didn't buy it for PS3. Dog, we were like, we're in next gen, we're buying it for PS4.
Right.
Yep.
And I always had this suspicion that the PS3 version of Persona 5 was gonna get pricey because of the low print. But people don't give a shit, dude. They don't.
It's surprising.
It doesn't matter.
I didn't even know it came out on PS3, and I saw it. I was like, what the fuck?
Same deal with Breath of the Wild on Wii U. I always thought it was going to start climbing up, and it still hasn't.
It had a little
bump.
Like when we were really bad era of FOMO, but it leveled out already.
I think that was people just looking for shit to collect that's different.
But even then, there's only a couple that you guys might know it better, but they released on all, like, I feel like the Xbox and PS2 era had it more, where it was Xbox, PS2, and the next set up.
Yeah.
But PlayStation usually is, if I don't want to say, it's not exclusive to a console, but it's more like a PlayStation. Like they'll have past and present.
You mean Sony actually makes games for their console?
Yeah, well, Xbox used to.
Yeah, I know.
I don't expect that from Microsoft anymore at all. But Xbox was more willing to do like, hey, our game is going to come out on Xbox and PS2 and Xbox 360 and PS3.
And now they're 100% behind that. But
yeah, it's true. You look at the original Xbox launch, there were so many Microsoft Studio games for it. Now, I mean, they're third party, but they acquired all these studios, and game development takes so long now. It's going to take 6, 7, 8 years to see some of these games. Like, truthfully, a lot of these studios, we're not going to see these games until the next quote console.
To be honest, me personally, Microsoft's decision of pushing out all their exclusives is just, I'm not buying a console anymore. So if they don't make one, I won't be upset. Yep. It's pushed me to PC. It's like, if you're going to put out all of your exclusives on a PC platform, then I'm going to spend that money buying a PC so I can buy all of your, I can get your Game Pass on my PC.
Not day one, though.
And I can do all my other stuff, too.
Later, you can play every Microsoft game released day one on PC.
Right. But PlayStation's even doing it now is what's crazy. So, like, that's weird.
Yeah, but even then, PlayStation still has timed exclusives.
Like a year.
Yeah,
and Xbox has sworn those off.
And even then, sometimes they're like, we're not putting on other shit. Sony will keep it on there. Like, everyone was like, oh, Final Fantasy 7. No, it's still only PlayStation.
We're in a weird
No, it's
time.
on PC.
The first one?
Is it really? I didn't know that.
The remake?
Damn.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
What a weird time.
It's on PC. Integrate's on PC, too.
Guess I said fuck y'all.
It was a timed exclusive, and they established as a timed exclusive, too. And that was the same for Spider-Man. It's a timed exclusive.
Horizon.
Final Fantasy 16 is a timed exclusive. And that's where they do it, where it's like, they're giving us exclusives and reasons to buy those consoles, because if you want to be in and play it day one, like, you're going to be on the console.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're doing it with titles that people really want. And the PC players are going to have to wait. And then the PC players got shitty ports, like Last of Us.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
So I'm going to get a PC for my Xbox stuff and my PC exclusive games, and then just have my console. So, like, there's no reason to buy
kind of what they want in a weird way. Yeah. It's kind of what they want. When you have that option, you clearly want people to be able to do that, which, like,
I think Microsoft has gotten to that point where they've said in the past, hey, we're losing money on consoles, but we're not making the money on the consoles, we're making the money on the service. And now they're saying, what's the point of the console? It's restricted us too much.
Yep.
And they can play it on whatever, so everything's a fucking console. Like,
They said, holy shit, Baldur's Gate made so much money on a what? And we can't put it out for what? Because of our console? Nix it. Which is a smart move.
Yeah.
I think they'll make so much more money on a Game Pass subscription. I mean...
Yeah.
If developers want to take that deal.
Well, they have so many development teams now. Like I said, it's this next group
just
of
absorb
Xbox.
them all, yeah.
To keep them open.
Like the same.
Yeah, if they keep them open, that's a good point.
Yeah, they'll just be making Call of Duty and Elder Scrolls Online. Not Elder Scrolls Online 2, Elder Scrolls Online 1. I keep forgetting that game's like, 12 years old?
They just released a new expansion.
Yeah.
Golden Road, baby.
Speaking of playing Fallout 76, I keep forgetting this game's like 6 years old. I'm like, it looks like an Xbox One, PS4 era game.
I'm okay with the upkeep.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
As long as you actually support it.
Mhm.
Yeah, they need to actually support it instead of just being like one expansion
But
every
that's it.
3 years.
Interesting
There's a point where it's so old that it's spaghetti code and you can't do anything. Destiny looking at you.
Yep.
All these games for like whatever consoles launch in the future are going to be games we've already been playing for 10 years.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. That's the rough part. It's like, that's still why World of Warcraft's popular. It's old.
It's really old.
It's old.
Yep. Well, hey, maybe we'll get a Xbox launch of World of Warcraft and it will revitalize vanilla again.
Well, I do want to say, I think you were asking what games we bought consoles for.
Mm-hmm.
But I think looking back, I think the console that I think has the best selection is the Dreamcast.
It's fire.
It's low-key
And
heat, yeah.
the handheld I think has the best selection is the Vita.
Ooh.
Which the Vita had really strong titles when it came out, but it had no support after.
Yep.
Which really sucks. But you've got let me find it. There's the PSP. The DS had doo-doo, but the DS like crawled, and that was the opposite. It was the DS had nothing, but they had the support, and the Vita had everything, but they got nothing afterwards. And I don't really know, like,
pouring out for the Vita.
You know, the reason for that or anything, but let me just give you some on the Vita because like they had some good ones. You've got Asphalt Injection, which is cool because like we hadn't had a different racing game than like Need for Speed or Forza or Gran Turismo in like ever. You've got BlazBlue. BlazBlue is actually very popular if you don't know.
Too.
Dynasty Warriors next, which Dynasty Warriors is a really big franchise. Little Deviants was interesting. I haven't played it though.
And that one worked with the PS4 version back and forth, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was that and Mod Nation Racers that like basically was the same game on the go. You could take your save with you and shit. That was pretty cool.
You got Ninja Gaiden, which I wish we had a new Ninja Gaiden game. That'd
Please,
be cool.
God. Microsoft owns them, please.
But Plants vs. Zombies, crazy popular everywhere. Rayman, popular everywhere. You've got Touch My Katamari, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Uncharted Golden Abyss, which people bought that just to play that game.
It was a console game on the go.
Yeah.
Like, pour one out for Vita, man. Even the Marvel vs. Capcom 3 port, it's so smooth.
Vita had a great
Vita was the
list.
shit.
But they just didn't get the support.
It's unfortunate. But you brought up Dreamcast. It was actually on my list for like underappreciated.
Dreamcast had a banger library.
Soul Calibur, Power Stone,
Oh man.
Mortal Kombat,
Yeah.
Sonic, Expendable, Blue Stinger, whatever.
Talk about the sports games
Trick
too.
Style,
Oh,
Hydro
yeah.
Thunder, Tokyo Extreme Racers, like an underappreciated racing game. 2 IndyCar type of games, Flag to Flag and Monaco Grand Prix, House of the Dead 2.
I mean,
Air Force
not to
Delta,
mention that 2K was
Aerowings.
a pack-in with a lot of them, right?
Yeah, dude. The 2K sports games were
They brought,
crazy.
Mhm.
they brought legitimate competition to sports games that solely needed it. And it's like kind of what the Genesis did too. They got sports games on it and it was like a really big system seller.
Well, and also Ready to Rumble Boxing, which sounds stupid,
That game
but
was
like
huge when it
you
came
put
out.
that against the 64 version and the PlayStation version next to each other, blows them out of the water.
Yeah.
It looks incredible.
I feel
Runs
like
better.
sports games ran better on this Dreamcast,
Oh yeah.
but same deal. It was the price.
Yep.
Hard to compete.
Mm-hmm.
Support too. They didn't get the
Yeah.
support needed after Fire launch, and you had to wait for everything else to come out. And it was really easy to bootleg games for it.
Yeah.
And is like people want to act like it's an overblown deal, but it's a huge reason why they didn't. Why would you pay almost $100 for a game and you can get it for free?
Mm-hmm.
It was so easy to do. Like I'm not tech savvy at all, and I can bootleg Dreamcast games. It's so easy. It's pathetically easy.
It's just sad that like Sega died with the Dreamcast. I mean, as far as like their hardware development,
Yeah, because they tried
it's like
stuff.
they had some crazy cool things on that console.
Yeah,
Crazy.
think about online gaming. Like,
Mm-hmm.
gotta take their hat off and tip it to them. Like, they're the ones that's like, hey, there's Ethernet cord. Why would I plug an Ethernet cord in my console?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, dude.
They were ahead and behind at the same time.
Sega in a nutshell, huh?
Yeah, for real. Damn. I miss the old days. That's what I'm going to conclude with. I'm not looking forward to the future. I don't even like where we're at now.
Yeah, but we have
I might just be
8
an old
generations
fuddy
of
dud.
consoles and games to play.
That's
so
a good
It's
thing.
true. Thank God we're retro collectors.
we've got a lot of games that we can go back to and play.
True. Very true. It just sucks that, I don't know, for me, getting up off my ass at midnight and picking shit up was fun, man. No one's didn't experience that anymore. Even games, they don't do midnight launches for games because they expect you just to download them there's your midnight launch. Let it install.
Pre-install. That's the excitement you get now.
Yep. Where it's like, oh, it's ready to install. Yep, it's true. Well, if you had to pick one cream of the crop console, best launch, what are you picking? And then we'll wrap this thing up.
I'm going to go PS2 just because of like, A is a huge library. It was smooth launch, like it sold successful, and it was like, oh yeah, you can get a DVD player, so it had a bunch of crossover and stuff. There was a mystique around getting a PS2, and it came out for about a solid year without any competition. And even then, when the Xbox came out, like it made a dent, but PlayStation was already like a juggernaut by then, so it's a lot of hype to follow up from that original PlayStation because it definitely set a standard and changed the game industry forever. But then PS2 came out and said, "Hold my beer." Kind of turned the world upside down. So that's my like I think probably best one. And like my little like hey surprise shout out by doing research was like I didn't realize how solid the GameCube launch was. And unfortunately, like it's like console people look back fondly on, but when it came out, it was an afterthought compared to the other two for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna go overall. I mean, numbers game PS2, sure. Like they just had the most options, the most variety. But I think Dreamcast, man, what an underappreciated launch. Like just bangers, all-time classics, everything I look for. Like variety, showing off your new system. They didn't need, a handful of games. It was more quality over quantity, right? So I think Dreamcast was number one for me. My sleeper picks, though, is like OG Xbox and 360 Xbox. Like Xbox gets shit on for not having, quality launch exclusives or exclusives in general, but there's a lot of great games for that original Xbox. And it's like, ones that hold up and turn into franchises and stand the test of time. It looked the best and played the best on there. 360 also, it had a bunch of like just shit you kind of forgot about, like Amped 3, which everyone's like, what the fuck, who cares? Super solid game. Peter Jackson's King Kong's finally starting to get some of the fucking love it deserves. But they also took risk. They did like Cameo. Like that era of taking a risk is gone. And like that was a great example of like what I look for in a launch title. Like, give me a little bit of everything.
It launched with like literally, there's like a horror. Condemned came out. That was like a horror game. Like
Quake
it had
4.
Literally everything.
Like it had a great launch that I think people overlook, but it was a good one. Your answer, Barry. I think Dreamcast was definitely a great pick. I was shocked by how great the Dreamcast was.
Dude, I want to, part of me wants to say the PlayStation, but I don't know. Something about that Dreamcast library is like, there is really something for everybody on there.
It's nasty.
They were like genre pushing too, and they came out.
Yeah, I do want to say, which there was one that was really surprising for me too.
And it was like David versus Goliath too. PlayStation had 30 games, and like you knew it was coming. It was so hyped up, and Dreamcast was like, "All right, this is what I got. Have at thee."
I think the TurboGrafx launch library was surprising to me. There was a lot more on there than I anticipated, in a variety. I mean, you've got Alien Crush, Dungeon Explorer, Power Golf, R-Type, nice. Victory Run. So there was some on there that I was like, that's a pretty,
especially the overseas launch was like pretty strong.
Yeah,
but we had like a Legendary Axe and stuff too for a launch game.
Love Legendary Axe.
Yeah,
yep, that one's on there too.
That's interesting too. That's going. It's
the
Juggernaut, bro. It's versus Galactus.
But the PC, the PC Engine library was terrible.
Yeah,
it was 2 games.
Oh no.
Oh really?
Yeah.
It's weird because the PC Engine was way more successful than the TurboGrafx.
Yeah.
Huh. So I think that one was surprising, but I feel like that PlayStation 2 had a very large selection, and it's hard to argue that, and I'm trying to not consider backwards compatibility on strictly just like the library.
Yeah. But
something about the kinds of games the Dreamcast had, like I just wish the Dreamcast didn't get shafted so badly.
Mm-hmm.
It's
the
so
biggest
disappointing.
What if of gaming, and the Vita's right behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially after like surviving the dud of a Sega CD, a Sega 32X.
And even the CD had a lot more on launch than I anticipated, but it's the cost, man.
That is just like the games weren't that good.
It's just like the cost every time they just, they would just get undermined by another company. It was like, they could have put out any cost. It could have been $200, and they would have been like $100.
Yeah.
I just think that Sega was set to fail, and it's not their fault.
Really did go all in on the Dreamcast and tried initially. Yep. It's Sega's ownership was just fucked up, unfortunately, because like Saturn had a solid launch. When you look at like the titles, you're like, look who it was going against though. Like it didn't really have a chance, and Dreamcast unfortunately is kind of the same thing. That Dreamcast launch is absolutely fire. Like
Man.
It was better than I remember, and I love the Dreamcast. But I was
Yeah.
like, damn, all these launched with the
Yeah.
Dreamcast. Like,
Like how many of those are like console
imagine going in and be like,
Yeah.
I only got money for one. Like, what are you picking? You know, like that's fun. I miss these days.
I feel
really
like,
do.
yeah, I feel like the Dreamcast has such a variety, but I also, I have to, after you talking about the Nintendo, I gotta give the Nintendo credit where credit's due.
Oh yeah,
Well, thank you for saving the game industry.
yeah.
Because, like, it did. I didn't get. I really was just like, is it really nostalgic? Because I don't know about these games, but put it in that context of, like, we're trying to make this popular for home and not just arcade. And here's our selection and here's our hardware. It makes sense.
Yeah.
And it was a lot larger than it could have been. It could have been very small.
Yeah,
So,
it's interesting.
Especially when you look at like launch titles versus in the life cycle, like Nintendo's pretty stark how different like
Nintendo's first console and they had that many games to put out with it is impressive to the commitment.
Yeah.
So, I got to give them some credit.
So, what do you guys think? Let us know. Discord, invitations in the show notes, social media at Collecti-Bros Pod. Let's get y'all's thoughts on this. We appreciate y'all for listening and thank you for your continued support. Hey, whoever's next, what's next?
No, it's you.
Oh, hey, hey, Brian. Next is Days Gone Collector's Edition for the PlayStation 4. Should be an interesting one. There's a lot of talk about in this game. It's one of the most divisive games I've ever seen online, and after playing it, I totally get why it's so divisive. That should be a fun one. A lot of meat to chew off of that bone, or if you're not, into that, there's a lot to talk about also. So, tune in. Appreciate y'all's support. Stay oppressed, y'all. Stay oppressed.
See ya.
Bye.